gotta open my Facebook real quick to see if we're actually live. But if anyone's out there, if you can post in the comments and let us know if you see us, because we're just going to chat amongst ourselves until we know people are there.
Right, and we're happy because Lori Davis is back joining us. And Lori, it feels like eons ago where you were on and chatted with us.
So much has happened since then.
And I think it's only been maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it's been like 4 years actually, but whatever. All right, look, we are live. There's 6 people. There's 8 people there at least. So if you're one of those 8, there's actually more people now. I can't keep track. But if you can post in the comments just to let us know you actually are there.
I usually see. Oh, I see Emily just said hello. So
hi. Good.
Oh, good.
Okay, people are there. Here we go.
All right, awesome. Well, we'll wait a couple seconds till we start because Facebook likes to have you wait a few minutes. That's what they tell us. That's what the Facebook people tell us. But we're going to talk in a second when we get started. We're going to talk about your staff and your clients and you. We're going to talk about all 3 of those groups and what we need to consider with all 3 of them. So that's what our plan is. And we are going to monitor the chat. So if you have questions as we go through this, definitely just post a comment in the chat box and we'll be happy to try to answer those as well. So lots of people saying they can see us and hear us. And Drew is here. Hey, Drew. And Josette is here. And Katie's here. And look, we've done enough of these now that I recognize a ton of these names too. So that's kind of cool. Kim Bond is here. And Jean. So awesome.
Amy and Abby and Emily. Oh, there's Cindy Carter.
Oh, there's Andrew too.
Cindy Carter. Andrew Rosenthal. Welcome, Andrew.
There's Mary Beth.
Let's just stay on and just read the
names. I know. Just read names.
Oh, it's a little punchy.
Yeah.
We are a little punchy. Someone the other day was like, can you let me know like how you plan the agenda and do the Facebook Lives? I'm like, well, we just press the button and we just start talking.
Especially when it's the 3 of us.
I know. Exactly.
Kind of feed off of each other. So it just kind of works.
I know. Literally, I was like, Laura, you want to be on Facebook Live? We're doing it tomorrow. No, I think I asked you Monday. And she's like, okay. Like, you didn't even ask us what we're going to talk about. You were like, okay.
Oh, I always have something to say.
Oh, exactly.
Laura's helpful as we try to communicate. And communicating is really important right now. I mean, I know from when we talked to our members, several people have been getting their PPP loans. And unexpectedly, some folks are running into staff that aren't necessarily wanting to come back to work. Have you heard that, Lori?
I have. Or staff that actually asked to be laid off.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they heard that they were going to make more being laid off. So
and I think we can kick it off and kind of talk about that staffing issue. And I did just see Andrew said we just got a $10,000 deposit into our account. The question I have is, did you know that was coming, Andrew? Because we've heard from several people who are like, I went to my bank account, I opened it up, and there was $10,000 more in there. Like, there's no, I'm waiting for that to happen in my bank account. It hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, really. What I've heard is it's not the PPP, it's the disaster.
Yeah, it's the EIDL.
Just hitting. Yeah. But it's like fairy godmother just goes, you're 10,000.
I know. So Andrew said no. He just opened it. So everyone go, like, don't leave yet. We want you to stay here. But while you're watching us, go see if there's $10,000 in your
bank account.
We've heard that from 3 or 4 people now. So anyway, but to go back to the staffing, I think that is an issue that we have had several of our clients that have said total excitement. They got their PPP. They were like ready to bring their people back, and they started making phone calls. And some of the people are like, oh yeah, I'm not ready to come back yet. So do you want to talk a little bit about communicating some of that and how to talk to your staff about some of that, Lori?
Yes. So one of the things that I am, I talk about all the time. I mean, I have many soapboxes. I was going to say like your soapbox that you have, but is keeping your team engaged with you. And during this time, I have been encouraging everyone that I work with to keep your team engaged. Like I had to lay off 3 people, so I've been texting them. We had an online meeting the other day and just checked in on people to see how they were doing and make sure that they still felt like they were a part of our team. And we're not at the point yet to ask them to come back. They know we want them back. I hope they do, because they should, if they're believing everything we've been telling them. So, but I think this is the time to look at, like, you know, if they have a health issue, if they live with someone who is highly, you know, at risk, totally understandable. But right now is the time that you're seeing a lot of people's true colors. And I think it's time to reevaluate your staff. This is your opportunity to look. I've actually been thinking about creating a list that actually grades people on the qualities that you think are important, and make a list of all of your staff members and put a weighted percentage on all of those qualities, and bring back the ones who align with what you believe in and how you run your business.
And we've talked about that this is the time to build your team of A players, because I feel like there's some great A players from other businesses and industries that got laid off that may be looking for a career change, or at least just want to get back to work. And so it'd be an opportunity to find and add A team players to your team.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I have heard from a couple things I've heard. One is, you know, shock, where somebody would call an employee and they would say, you know, I'm not really ready to come back yet, kind of like, and this is something we heard very early on when that unemployment benefit came out, the extra $600. Our members immediately started saying, people aren't going to want to come back if they're getting, because that's more than what they get when they have a job, that extra $600 a week unemployment benefit for the United States. But I think what I've also heard is the people who are coming back, and one of our members said early on, if they don't want to come back, then they're not your A team. And the A team people are really the ones that want to work. They don't just want to sit home and get money, as nice as that sounds. We all know that studies actually show that most people don't stay or quit a job simply because of money. There's usually a whole lot of other parameters. So I've also heard that people that are getting staff back, that it is the best people. Like, they have the best team right now and they're working the best together. And that's because that is probably your A team people. And then I also heard from someone who said, it's interesting because the people she thought were going to be the ones that came back weren't necessarily the ones that came back. So sometimes some of those wallflower employees that don't really cause trouble, but you haven't really ever challenged them, they might step up to the challenge now, and you might see a whole different A-level employee there that you might not have noticed before. So I think really keeping that whole communication open and really talking to people is going to be important right now.
Absolutely. Yes. Sometimes it's the quiet but dependable employees that will surprise you the most. And those are the ones that we forget to check in on as much, because they just don't ruffle any feathers. They don't cause any waves. But those are the ones that we really have to pay a lot of attention to let them know how valued they are and how much we depend on them. And sometimes we forget to tell them that because they are so dependable. But now's the time to do it, because that person is an A team player, and you need people that you can depend on as you're getting out there and starting to reopen.
Yeah, one of the things Amy commented is that's what we're seeing, and we're able to cross-train some people to take on new roles and responsibilities. So that's another thing. I think one of the things that Susan and I have been focusing on this whole last 12 years, which has really only been a few weeks, but doesn't seem like years. We've been saying all along, this is the opportunity to readjust your workflow and your organization of your company. So this is the time to really take a look at how are you structured, and maybe you have the wrong people in the wrong seats on the bus, so to speak. And maybe you don't even have the bus seats organized the right way. This is the time to really figure that out on paper and then start putting your employees in the right spots. And then, as Amy said, maybe you're going to do some more cross training so you can be more efficient with fewer staff if you need to. So I think all of that's really important right now.
It is. There's a book called Traction, and Kim Campbell, who owns the Doggies Inn, introduced it to me. And there's a very simple exercise in that book called the GWC, and it's get it, want it, and has the capacity to do it. So when you are looking at your employees, you can look at them in those three simple terms. Do they get it? Do they want it? And do they have the capacity to do it? And if one of those doesn't fit, then you need to put them over in another pile and really reevaluate those people. And do you have a spot for them where they will exceed doing what they do best, or is it time to part ways? So obviously it's not always as simple as that, but it does often come down to those three questions that you can ask yourself.
Right. So Karen had mentioned we are we're training 3 kennel techs to become groomers using the Paragon Distant Training. So that's awesome. We do think that grooming is going to be one of the first services to come back and actually be slammed, I think, when everybody opens up and all the states and countries open up. I think grooming is going to be big. We had a couple other people say they're doing the same thing. So great opportunity again to start getting some staff training. Susan, do you want to talk any more about any staff, or else we'll move on to sort of the business stuff that I want to talk about?
I think we can move on to business. It doesn't seem like we were getting a lot of questions, so maybe everybody's mastered that staff part or for today.
Or they're fed up with it. But if you have any
stay in denial, because the business is going to come back and you're going to need staff. So you just need to be prepared.
Exactly.
Come back and onboarding them. So.
Yeah. So I'm going to move to, we're going to talk a little about getting your clients back. But before we do that, and since we were just talking about grooming a second ago, I'm going to talk a little bit about, you can't get your clients back until you can open. And there's been a ton of discussion about whether you're allowed to open and can you do a service? And if you are open for one service, does it mean you can do all of the services, even if those services aren't essential? Like it's crazy how all of this has come out. And I had a guy come in, I think I mentioned this on one of the other Facebook lives that we did. I had a guy came in and put in a dog door for us, and he happens to be a dog trainer, and he also happens to have a pet care facility doing daycare boarding and training. And where and grooming was shut down, but because daycare was open, he was still doing grooming. And then groomers got mad and complained, and he had to shut his grooming down. And so I know, Lori, you've been dealing with that up in New Jersey. So I'm going to just toss it over to you of kind of how you can, because we've been saying all along, this is an opportunity for you to get in touch with your local municipalities, whatever that government looks like. And some people are like, I don't want to bother them. And then other people are like, I'm going to go, be really mad at them. And that might not be the best approach either. But I know you've had some success in this area, Lori. So you can talk a little bit about what has happened up in New Jersey.
Yes. So I've been giddy like this whole time sitting here, because right before this phone call, we got a big win. And so what happened is, as most of you know, if you don't live in New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, it's been hit really, really hard. So things have been really strict. But the problem has been all along with all of these state mandates, things have been very gray. And when I started looking in New Jersey, I found 3 different places that said 3 different things. So they were just, the state website where it listed essential businesses. In one place, it said pet stores. In another place, it said pet stores. And then in parentheses, someone had added, like April 8th, I believe they added, but not pet boarding and not pet grooming. And so my client in New Jersey, they did put something on Facebook that they were an essential business. They were providing these services because we had not yet seen this change on the website. And they had some calls from groomers, brick and mortar groomers who had been shut down, and then they were reported. And so the police came. They told them they needed to shut down right now. They had 24 dogs in their facility. And so we talked them through that. But immediately, so the way that I really got involved is, usually I would give recommendations to the owner of what to do, but he has another business. He installs lighting and things in runways. Well, they happen to be working at a hospital, trying to get a hospital open. And he said, Lori, can you just do this for me? Can you just handle it? Be our spokesperson, handle it for us. So it took hours. So it takes a lot of time, but I went onto the website. I appealed through their link, their channel. I filled out the form. I had written this long email explaining, that's probably what took me the longest, was to craft that email, explaining why pet care is so essential, that we were offering discounts to essential workers. I mean, not even just first responders and medical personnel, just anyone out there working who needed help and needed their pet cared for. And then I looked up information of got some things off of DVM 360 and things like that about the importance of grooming and the health risk, especially for long-haired dogs when they're not groomed and when their nails aren't trimmed. And I put all of this into an email and with links to these places where they could go. So I did all this research for them. I sent it. And then while I was at it, I just Googled their district state representatives. And I ended up sending an email. And again, it was a form, but I just copied and pasted that whole email into it. And I got a phone call from the chief of staff of that district senator, a state senator. And we talked about it. And I said, he was talking pet boarding, and there were several emails back and forth with other people who had been involved in getting the police to go and shut this place down. He said he had spoken with the Attorney General's office, and she said, I was under the impression that pet boarding was included and is essential. And I said, I told him this. He said, well, forward that email to me, please. And I said, but before we hang up, I do want to also mention grooming, because I think that's being left out. And I said, if you ever see these videos about dogs who've been adopted and they show this transformation, what do they show? They show a matted dog. And then they shave the dog and they show all these sores and things on the dog. And so I appealed to him, it's just, I don't think these people have so much to think about. And I think they're depending on experts in each industry to appeal and say, here's our case. Here's why we're essential. And then it's okay. I mean, I don't think they're out to rob anyone of their right to provide an essential service. I just don't think they have time to do all the research. So we did it for them. And so this morning, my client sent me a screenshot of an update. It was this big, I'll share it with you. It's from the state of New Jersey Police Association or something like that. And first thing on there is grooming, retail grooming. And the next thing on there is pet boarding. Awesome. And we won. We not only won for my client, we won for everybody in the state of New Jersey who had to shut down. So all of those people who called and reported my client, they can go back to work too. So
yeah, and that's the thing is we have heard that a similar story in a lot of different states. There's some states that came out the gate, like New York was one of them, that came out of the gate saying everything in the pet industry is essential. So right out of the gate, New York said grooming, boarding, daycare training.
Did that.
Yeah. And so I was actually surprised when I saw New Jersey, because I just kind of assumed that they would get information from each other state-wise that are near neighboring states, but they didn't. But we heard one of our clients in Alaska had a similar situation, and she contacted the local reps, and they actually sent her a direct email saying, her specific facility, they named her facility and said, you can open for these services. And it's not taking a lot of time.
It's not.
But I think I agree with you. I think these representatives are trying to do the best they can. They just don't necessarily understand what's involved in the pet industry. Unless
the other thing that I did share that I think probably helped our case was what measures we have put into place to protect employees inside the facility and to protect the clients when they came to drop off. So arrival and departure procedures. And I mapped it out very clearly, like in bullet points. Here's what we've implemented.
And that was actually one of the questions Lori was saying, can you share the points of your letter kind of? And I do think that's an important, not just to say, I want to be open, but to say, this is why our services should be open. And here's what we're doing to honor whatever your state or city has in terms of your current regulations for social distancing, I think is important.
Yeah. So if anyone wants it, we're going to share the letter, and we're going to share the arrival and departure procedures and what I know all of my clients are doing for, inside and outside the pet care facility. So we're going to share that list too. So I think the easiest way to is just to go to our website, ParamountSuccessGroup.com, and just fill out that little contact form, and we'll send it. We'll email it right away.
Yeah, and I put that link, put that website, already in the comments, so you can find it there, ParamountSuccessGroup.com. We did have a couple questions, so I'm going to just stop for a second. And this kind of goes back to the regulations or the policies. So Vicki said, my staff are concerned about picking up dogs. They're worried about running into clients at pickup who are working from home. And somebody else said, I can't find it, but something the same, like they actually went through the process of being deemed essential, but then people just don't want to bring their dogs in. And I think this is a valid concern about making sure you're telling people what you're doing, what you're actually doing to keep them safe. And that goes for your staff too. Susan, you talked a little bit about that on the stuff we just recorded. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about your staff safety.
Yeah, you definitely have to put in measures that are in compliance with your local regulations, whether it's masks, gloves, whatever is required to keep staff safe. I think that's very important. Going over the protocols with them on washing hands and doing sanitizing. If dogs are coming in, I know people that have created either it's only pickup and delivery from the car using the business's leash only. That's what my facility has done. There's no going into their facility. Some people have set up an airlock to where the dog goes in, they leave, they sanitize before they open, and then from the other side, they get the dog out of the airlock and then they take them in. So there's never any contact. If you're doing pet sitting or dog walking at home or picking up at home, that can be more challenging if people are working from home and you're going to the house. So we had talked about possibly having a crate outside that they you text when you're arriving, they put the dog in, you have sanitation to get it, and you get the dog out with your leash and put them in the car, and then you do the reverse when you bring it back. I think everybody has to work out those processes and procedures based on your facility layout, what your team's comfortable with, and what your clients will accommodate. But that your clients will either have to accommodate that, or you won't be able to serve them until you get more opportunity for things that change in your community. So it may be a case where you're not able to serve every client right now. You're able to serve the ones that are comfortable with the measures that are put in place.
And I think too, some of this comes to educating especially your staff, helping them to understand what it takes to actually become infected. So I know we talked a lot in the early stages of the pandemic about whether or not dogs can carry the disease, and they can't carry it in terms of the dog gets COVID-19 and gives COVID-19 to somebody else. But there was discussion about, can a person who has COVID-19 and has a pet cough on their pet and potentially put droplets in the pet's fur, which then an employee might hug the dog and inhale those droplets and get COVID-19 that way. And from everything that we've seen on AVMA's website, on the CDC website, it's possible for the dog to carry a droplet. It is. Everybody says it is. But the likelihood of that actually infecting you is pretty small, because viruses. So I read this article the other day that explained it, and I should put that on our Facebook, on our COVID-19 page, but basically explained viruses don't grow. Once they're outside the body, they're dying. Like as soon as they're outside the body, the only way they can infect someone is pretty quickly. They have to be inhaled or, somehow get into another person. So it is possible. And that is why a lot of people said, well, let's be safe and we'll just wipe dogs down with, some kind of cleaning wipe or grooming wipe when they come into our facility. So that's one way to maybe talk to your staff. And if they're concerned about that, let them have that opportunity to say, we're going to wipe the dogs down so that you don't inhale that. And maybe you're wearing a mask when you go to get the dog before they get wiped down. So there's ways I think you can help to make your staff more comfortable. Again, with greeting clients in most of the places, at least in the United States, there is social distancing regulations that are recommending you not be face-to-face with a client. So I think that's a fair concern for an employee. So putting some of those measures in place that Susan just talked about, where you have a place where they can drop the dog off, use a new leash, the client puts the dog in there, and then the employee goes and gets the dog, so you don't actually have to talk to the clients face-to-face, I think is really important. But all of those things have to be communicated, and in a way that doesn't scare people, which I think is the other challenge, I guess. So I don't know, Lori, if you have any other comments on kind of how to keep everybody feeling safe and comfortable.
What we do is communication, and one of the things that I think it's important to meet with your staff and educate them, on everything you just talked about. So all of the protocols that you're putting in place, because it is important for your staff to feel safe and for them to know that this is a well thought out process, well researched process. And then also what we have found to be very effective with getting clients back in the door actually are what we call compassion calls. And they have been so effective so the point of a compassion call is to take your top spenders list. So these are your clients that you see on a regular basis. This is not a sales call. It is a call just to check on them and see how they're doing. Those conversations always turn into something else. It's saying, is there anything that you need? How are you managing this? And those conversations have turned into so much business for any of our clients that have done them. And then we also have My Reservation people, and we have done them for clients. And they have gotten so many people back in the door for daycare especially, but grooming is going bonkers everywhere. But they've been lifesavers. I mean, it's also been a time to talk about if you're doing gift certificates. If you have a gift certificate promotion going on where you're giving them more value, sell it at $100, they get $120 in value, and maybe you have a giveaway going on. Those things can come up in those conversations, but it's those one-on-one conversations that makes it so valuable. That is something, it's not on our website yet, but it is something that we're going to offer through My Reservation People, is making those calls for people. We have a perfect way laid out to do it. We have amazing reservation specialists who are so compassionate, and your clients will never know that they're not sitting in the back of your building making that phone call. They're just, I'm not really sure who named them compassion calls. For when I created it, I was calling them outbound client and pet wellness calls. And somehow they turned into compassion calls, and it's something that we are offering to do. If you don't have the people to do it, let us know, and we have a service we can do it. But I think those have been the most meaningful out of all of this, to educate clients on actually what the pet care facilities are doing. So and
I would say, yeah, and I would say Susan and I have been telling people, especially those of you that have that PPP money now, and you're wondering, what do I have my staff do? Because we don't have all the dogs, and you can only clean so much, one at a time. And we've been giving lists and ideas for what your staff can do from home. And one of the things we talked about was, hey, have everybody call your clients. But if you're not a natural on the phone, or you don't know what to say, or, you're just like, hey, checking in. I will tell you that we have seen, I think because everybody's staying at home most of the time, the interaction, people want to talk on the phone. Like right now, my volume of calls and my volume of emails, for that matter, has skyrocketed during this pandemic. Because I know how much I do normally. And I think some of that is because people genuinely have questions, but the amount of time I'm on the phone with people and we're just chit chatting, like I answer their question and then it just turns into like, how are you doing? And I think people really, really want to talk. And so if you have somebody that's really compassionate on the phone and is really caring about them, and these are your clients, so you probably know a lot about, their situations and their dog. And I think it's a great opportunity. And so I think it's really cool that you're seeing that really transition into back as well.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Because like I said, they are not sales calls. But what they do is they create a memorable experience for that client, and they're going to remember this when it's all over. When everything gets back to normal, they're going to remember those businesses that went the extra mile for them. And it's everything about the pet is an emotional experience for a pet parent anyway. So when you reach out, and you don't have to, and you just ask how they're doing, and maybe they need some dog food. I mean, I've had clients who've taken dog food. I had one client even took a few rolls of toilet paper because the lady mentioned on the call that she couldn't find any toilet paper. So she dropped off a few rolls. So
Susan's person, who brought you wine, Susan? Someone brought you wine.
Yeah, my dog food delivery company, I called them to see if they were still able to be open and deliver food. And she's like, yes, and we can also stop at the wine store and bring you wine. And I thought, I love you. She knows me well.
All right, so a couple questions, and they're kind of all over the place, so we'll just stop for questions. But Courtney says, I've been begging my employees to call and get nothing but excuses. So call Lori, and she can do it for you, is what I would say.
You know what? There's a reason that a lot of people work at pet care facilities. They want to be with the pets. They don't want to work with the people. So that's why I have a job. It honestly is you have to hire people who want to talk to people. So,
right. And that are able to. The worst thing you could do would be force someone who doesn't want to make one of those calls to do it, because you're going to do more harm than good.
Right. Right.
People on the other end will know it's not authentic and real. Yeah. So unfortunately, if your team isn't, then like Lori said, when you look to maybe bring some other players in, that may be one of the skills that's high on your need list, is those communication skills with other people. Or you may need to role play with them to get them comfortable. They may say, I don't know what to say. So having a script and role playing, and then they may be comfortable and ready. I don't want to totally write them off, but
yeah. And then Stacy said, my staff want to stay at home and have been given projects to do and submit hours, but none of it has been done. Frustrating. But like you said, we know what staff cares about our business. And I mean, I would say that work at home requirement. So Susan and I have been working virtually. The Dog Gurus is a virtual company. So Susan lives in Texas. I live in Colorado. We've never once lived together. Our staff is all over the United States. So we have people in every time zone, I think. But we have requirements for their job. And it's just the same as you should have requirements for what their responsibilities are when they're at work. You really have to lay out, and I think have a conversation to say, here's what your pay is. Here's what your job looks like now, because that job has changed. They used to come into work and take care of dogs. Now they're at home. So I think you owe it to the staff to say, this is what your job responsibilities are now. Here's the things I expect you to do. Here's the deadline. And then just like you hopefully are doing when they're on site with you, you have a process to make sure they understand what they've been asked to do, make sure you're checking on them and training them if they need the training. And then you're following up to make sure they're accomplishing that and you're holding them accountable. If that person is, whether they're paid or volunteer, I mean, that process looks the same. But certainly if they're being paid, they need to be held accountable. And they also need to be potentially fired if it's not working for them. It's not working for you. So there's the same kind of accountability I think that's needed. But I think we like to think that the best employees are just going to step up to the plate, and hopefully they will. But you still want to help to coach them, because this is a crazy time.
Even the best employees get busy doing other things. So, if you have a certain number of modules, you want training modules, you want employees to watch, unless you set aside time for them to do it, it's not going to get done. Or it's not going to get done in the time frame that you want it done, because unless you have this overachiever who's willing to do it at home. And I really don't recommend that, because we want it to be an expectation of the business. So, you want to say, it's that important to us that you watch these modules that I'm going to pay you to do it. So you're going to be on the clock when you do it. So you set aside time. And then with these calls, it's as easy as a spreadsheet that says, here's the name, here's, all the contact information, and here's the outcome of the call. And we expect this many by the end of the day. It's really as simple as that. So as long as it's a person who can have a good conversation.
Yeah. Then Candace said the gift certificate idea, $120 value for $100 cash, which is one of the ideas we have first heard from you, Lori. Talked about a few videos ago on how to make revenue during this time, has been the best idea so far. We've made over $5,000 in less than 2 weeks.
Yay.
So this is where I get to kind of be on my soapbox. So this idea, because Lori gave us this idea, it was several years ago, but several weeks ago, that seemed like years.
I know.
That idea, tons of people have tried to implement. The Trick training program, which we created for you to sell, again, everybody got the same offer, everybody got the same opportunity. And yet what Susan and I see is that some people it worked really well for. So, this is an example with Candace, worked really well. And then other people, it hasn't worked well at all. And so here's what I'm going to say. It's something about how you're marketing it, because it's the same process. And this is where I think it's a great opportunity to say, why did what I do not work as well as maybe what Candace did? And I would go back and look at how you actually sold it, how you actually marketed it. How many times did you mention it? How did you mention it? Words you used. This is why when I was talking about the Trick class, I just told a ton of people, I was like, just go talk to Lori and get her to write something for you. I mean, we drafted something you could use, but I can tell you Lori does that type of writing better. And so this is your opportunity to say, look, everybody's trying the same thing. Why is it not working for me? And it's not, I'm just going to tell you, this is my one chance where I can say it's not the idea. The idea obviously works. It may be how you're marketing it. So really learning a little bit and maybe educating yourself on the best ways to market and understanding how people think about things when they're trying to buy something. And then in a crisis, that's even more critical, because you're not necessarily going to sell something the same way in a pandemic that you would when you're not in a recession or when the economy's booming. Like, you just have to change the way you talk. And for Lori, that happens to be totally natural, which is why she does what she does. And for other people, it's all something you have to really learn. So
thank you, Rob.
Really important too. So we had a ton of questions about wiping dogs down and what do you use to wipe them down. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Susan?
Yeah, we talked about that very early on. I mean, everybody has to decide. I think I've seen things Robin talked about. It's low. The rescue wipes was one thing that we recommended. I know some people said they can't get rescue wipes. I honestly have not heard of anything else that you would know would be a virus that would absolutely kill the virus. But I do think, as Robin said, that a dog being a fomite is very low because the hair is porous. So another option is to give a bath if that's a big concern. This is kind of an area where you have to look at risk. Maybe you just wiping them down with a grooming wipe is better than not wiping them at all. I don't have a perfect solution. And so I know there's been a lot of people sharing what they're doing in chat. I don't know, Lori, Robin.
Yeah, I would say the other, we did have Todd Hepburn from Virox that's the company that sells the rescue wipes. They actually were on one of our videos very early on. I think that might have actually been the first Facebook video we did. And that all of our videos that we have done are on our COVID-19 page. And I'll put the link in the comments in a second. But he talked about the rescue wipes will kill the virus. They are not, I forget the words he used. They're not meant to be used on dogs. So he will tell you they weren't created to be used on dogs, but he did say that they were safe to use. So I know a lot of people that are using those, even though it's not what the product was developed for. It was developed for, hard surfaces, to wipe down hard surfaces and kill viruses, but he did say it wouldn't hurt the dog. But then we also did talk a lot with some of the other cleaning companies like Health Technologies. And really, when we are cleaning our own hands, we might use Purell if we don't have soap, but by and large, we're washing our hands with soap. So like Susan said, wiping the dog down with something that's just going to wipe the virus away or give the dog a bath is going to probably be just as effective. So I don't necessarily know that you have to kill the virus, but certainly rescue is an option that a lot of people are using. And then let me see. We had a whole bunch of questions here. Somebody earlier on, I think it was BJ. Let me just scroll back to her comment because this is like an awesome. She mentioned that when we were talking about all the different services. Oh, here it is. So she said, this just speaks to the need for the industry to work together. Grooming, retail boarders, pet sitters, dog walkers, trainers, independent. So this is awesome because one of the things that we actually have created is a virtual online conference. And we have actually brought a lot of those industry leaders together, and they were all really, really happy to work together. So it made me think that our industry is not as fractured as we like to think. But Susan, do you want to talk a little bit about the online conference real quick?
Yes. On April 29th and 30th, we're doing a virtual conference using a virtual conference meeting platform. So it's going to feel like you're going into room sessions or going into an exhibit hall and visiting vendor booths. And we have a track for daycare and boarding that the Dog Gurus are putting on. Robin and I are speaking, Lori's speaking on our track, but we also have it partnered for educational tracks for dog trainers by the Association of Professional Dog Trainers. We have a grooming track, Joe Zuccarello with Paragon and Learn to Groom. We have pet sitting track, Beth Stoltz and Pet Sitters International are putting the content together for that. And we have a retail sales track. Candace with Pet Boss Nation has put that together. So we are super excited to have Rebound, Rebuild, and Recover, because this is the time to be open to adding new services. So we asked all those education partners to have an introductory to their service program. So if you've never done pet sitting or dog walking, there's some introductory that will help you set up the policies and procedures so that you could do it and do it well. This is a time to rethink your business. And so we really encourage you we'd love to have you there. We kept the price low. It's $89 to come. It's 2 days. It's over 30 hours of different educational content. And the great thing is, after the live event, you have access to the recorded content for 90 days. So we know you can't watch everything in all 5 tracks, but you have 90 days. My tip is put time on your calendar now to go back and watch the tracks you missed, or 90 days will go by really fast, because I'm hoping there's going to be pets in the door and you're going to be busy too. But it's a great opportunity to get a lot of education. And like Robin said, these groups were very happy to work with us because they all care and want this industry to recover. So I do think there is a lot of cooperation that just may not always be seen.
Yeah, and we actually have some sponsors that are helping us with this conference, plus 5 different tracks. It's over, I think it's over 30 hours, right, Susan, that of education.
We did apply for CEUs for both PAC and CCPDT, and still waiting for confirmation on those.
And we wanted to keep the cost as low as possible because we have some sponsors that are helping us, and they actually are in a virtual trade show exhibit hall. So that's kind of cool, but we're able to keep the cost super low. So for the 2 days, it's only $89, and that includes the 90-day on-demand access. So I just don't think you're going to get that much material for that low a price anywhere. Blue Nine Pet Products also has actually offered to fund 25 scholarships. So if you really can't afford even $89, then there is an opportunity, and I'll put the link to the scholarships is actually on our COVID-19 page as well, but you can apply for scholarship as well. So I think that's really cool. So a couple of other questions. So Andrew had asked earlier about new clients, and this is a great question. How to bring in new clients during this crazy time where you actually might want to meet with them and talk to them, and you can get the paperwork in the mail. But we obviously know, especially for some of those services where they're leaving the dog with us for any extended period of time or the day or whatever, you might want to have that conversation with them. And I think Zoom is probably one of the most easiest, I guess, ways to do that right now. Lori, I don't know if you have any comments about kind of bringing in new people right now.
I'm glad that you mentioned that having the video conference, because unless you're able to say to that pet parent, your dog is perfect, your dog's going to fit right into whatever. But if you have to deliver anything that is not just 100% positive, then it is so important to have that face-to-face connection with them. So it has to be either a phone call or preferably a video conference. Even if you don't need to give them any kind of critical information that they could take as negative toward their pet, that's the time where you build a connection. So you start making that connection before you get the dog in the door, and then having that conversation after the evaluation is so important, because that's your opportunity to make recommendations. That's your opportunity to get them coming on a regular basis, because you can let them know the importance of getting their dog into a routine. Let's get them acclimated very quickly. So go ahead and bring them in, and maybe you offer, if they buy a package right then, maybe you give them the rest of the week for free, just so they get into the habit of coming into your facility. So that is your opportunity to bring that client on. It's kind of like an onboarding process, and bring them on as a long-term client. So.
Yeah, and if you don't have a Zoom account, I think Zoom is probably one of the easier ones. There's also GoToMeeting. You could do it on Facebook potentially. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do, video conferencing, but I think that's probably the best option. I think for grooming, a new grooming client especially, that's another one where you really have to have a conversation with the person, that you don't just necessarily want to bring their dog in and, do the groom without having a little more of a conversation. Right. But I know a lot of training facility or trainers have now moved their classes online. So I think that whole online virtual world is going to be more and more important. And some of that you might end up keeping, like you might continue to use some of that.
Right.
So Laura Starring had asked, our grooming has tripled. This is what we're expecting to happen with grooming, is going to just take off. But, and I'll throw this one to you, Susan, about, does the Dog Gurus have any best practices for grooming?
We actually did create, because we had written the 4 E's of excellence for dog daycare and off-leash play. And part of our growth intensive program, we did expand that to include grooming, dog training, pet sitting, and dog walking. So that's based on our experience. I would go to the Paragon's COVID page, because they're sharing a lot of their Learn to Groom content free right now. And they are the true experts in the grooming procedures and protocols. But it is worth spending a little bit of time to set up really good best practices there for the safety, because there are different safety precautions in especially high volume grooming bathing that you need to be monitoring than other services.
Yeah, we have, I will put links after some of this. I have to go look up the links to put them in the comments. I can't multitask. I'm afraid if I go to Facebook, if I go to Google to pull the thing down, I'll hang up the call. So not that good yet. But anyway, I'll put those links in the comments section after we're done. We did have, I just want to say a shout out to, I think it's Emily, who is frantically helping to keep up with questions and links from Paramount Success Group. And at one point I even said, Emily, are you here? Can you help this person? So she's behind the scenes working with us, and she didn't expect to be. So thank you guys for that. But she's put several links are in there for getting some of the resources from Paramount Success Group. So, and Laura said she uses, oh yeah, that's a really simple one. Laura said we use FaceTime a lot. So yeah, with so many people with iPhones now, FaceTime, if you just want to do a quick call, and that's awesome because all you need is their phone number. You can definitely do that.
Just above all, don't put anything negative in writing. It's just never the best process for providing clients with information. It just,
yeah, you definitely need
too many, there's too much room for error and misinterpretation.
Yeah.
And then you're like me, because I am all of your target clients, and I got my feelings hurt by a pet care facility here in town. And I didn't get my feelings hurt, but I'm like, my dog's 6-month-old lab, and you're telling me you're acting like he's a bad dog because he's bouncing around and doesn't know how to behave in group play. Well, duh. So,
oh my gosh. Yeah, it's definitely not. You definitely want to have that face-to-face in some fashion for that kind of talk.
Yes.
And then Amy, this actually has come up quite a bit too. I heard there was security breaches regarding Zoom. So maybe another platform would do better. And then Angie actually said she was on a call yesterday and they're working on some of the features. So Zoom, so this is the funny thing. Zoom, Susan and I have been using Zoom for like 6 years.
Yeah.
And then everyone's like, Zoom. Like in the past 2 weeks, we're like, yeah, we've been using it for the past 6 years. They literally went from like 10 million users to 200 million users in like a matter of weeks.
Right.
And so a lot of the problems that were happening were because people weren't setting security measures on. There are ways to set up Zoom so you have password protection and you have monitoring protection. In fact, Susan and I just changed some of our settings on some of ours because we usually just let people join without the host, and we just changed that to make it a little bit more strict. But there's ways you can protect yourself with some of those settings. But like anything in the virtual world, there are risks. So I'm not going to say there's not, but I definitely think Zoom is aware of some of the issues and they're working to fix those as quickly as they can. But yeah, there's other softwares out there. There's, like I said, if you're whoever just said they use FaceTime, I think Laura had a great idea, because FaceTime, if you need to just do a quick call, it's a great way to talk. But just tell your client you're going to do FaceTime, because when people call me on FaceTime, if I don't know you, I'm hanging up. Because I'm like, I'm talking to you on FaceTime, just call me. But there's definitely reasons where you want to do face-to-face, so let your client know that. GoToMeeting is another one. Skype is another one. So there's other ones out there that you can use, but Zoom has been great for the dog gurus. We use it all the time.
Yeah, and I think partly some of those security issues where people were putting links out on social media where anybody could join, and we have never used it that way.
Right.
And I know we are Zoom customers, and we've gotten all kinds of updates that they've done to the program since it started. So I know they're working on it. But, think about how fast your business fell off. What if it had done the opposite and tripled or quadrupled? You would have some bumps in the road, too, in your processes.
Here's a note from Beth. Beth, well, my feelings are hurt. I'm the dog's mother. Beth is the breeder of Lori's dog. And then Angie said, not Huck, he's perfect. So you have a lot of support for your little perfect 6-month-old lab.
Well, now he's a year. So, but I have to say, I haven't been back to that place. So if that tells you anything.
Yeah, exactly. So this is interesting. We're going to answer this one, then we're going to move real quickly to taking care of yourself. But Suzanne said, we're picking up quite a few new groom clients because so many other grooming places have closed because they believe they aren't essential. So that's really interesting. I know we had early on, we had some of our members closed because they had small staff and somebody tested positive for COVID-19. So the whole staff had been infected and they all had to self-quarantine. So we did have some people close for that reason. And I think we've had other people close because they're just not comfortable opening. So that's an interesting point, that you may pick up clients from other businesses that are shutting down for one reason or the other. But I also think as Lori talked about with the situation in New Jersey, I think for all of us, if you're worried about being closed and you want to open and you just don't think you can, or you don't think you're essential, you need to do that research, and you need to potentially go and petition your government as to why you should be able to reopen.
Right.
So, but I also think that works the other way. I think we have found that there is the need to have constant reminders to your clients that you are opened if you're open. If you think about everybody who's at home, they're all stressed. Like, this is a stressful time for the world, and we all handle stress differently. But they might just forget about the day-to-day stuff that happens and forget that they could actually take their dog. And we have found that our clients who are doing the best in terms of generating revenue right now are ones that are going out with a message, not the same message every day, but a variation on, hey, don't forget we're open. Hey, don't forget we can alleviate some of your stress and worry. Hey, they're going out there with messages to remind people of what they do and of what services they offer, and encouraging people to sign up and come in. So I think that's really important.
An article on LinkedIn the other day, and it was about the mental and physical well-being of dogs and how they're suffering too. And I was telling someone, I thought I might get kind of crucified for posting something like that on LinkedIn. But what I did was said, pet care businesses are suffering, but look at this article, so are the pets. So those pets who are used to being in a routine, here's your chance to educate your clients and say, this is what happens because those pets, they absorb everything that's going on at home. And so they're stressed too, and they're probably not behaving. They're probably staying in trouble. So, and the last thing I want to say is that the campaign that we did to get my client's facility back open, and all of the pet care facilities in New Jersey and grooming facilities. It started on Friday and it ended today. So Friday to Wednesday. I mean, it's been nonstop work on it, but Friday to Wednesday. So it was a much easier process than I imagined, and people were so willing to hear us out. So I encourage.
And I think for most of the people we've heard from that have gone to their government agencies, they have heard back pretty quickly. Yeah. I mean, this isn't one of those like, oh, it's going to be months and months and months till I hear. So, they all have staff working overtime right now too. And as much as we can complain about government, whether it's national, federal, whatever, city, state, doesn't matter. I think they honestly are all trying to do their best with something that's never happened. So I kind of feel like, don't be too hard on them. I know there's a lot of complaints we can have, but I really do think they're trying to do their best, and they are turning around decisions pretty quickly by and large for the decisions they're probably getting swamped with. So that's good to hear, though, that you found the same thing.
Yeah, I'm very impressed.
So Susan, do you want to talk a little bit about self-care? Because I think that's the one thing we haven't touched on a lot. Yeah. And that's one of your favorite topics?
It is one of my favorite topics because right now, you're spending a lot of energy running on adrenaline, and over time that does wear you out, and you're going to crash and burn. So you do need to be thinking about what you need to take care of yourself, taking some time. I know when I need to recharge. So finding ways, even if you can't go out and do a lot of the normal things like I'm used to, which is going to my hair salon, my, massage and all that, I have to find other things. So the garden will do that for me, but finding ways to step away from your business, your team, your family. Sometimes we may need to just have something for ourselves. I've been doing a lot of, they call it binge reading, just kind of mindless novels. There's so many authors now that will write books of 5 or 6 series. So I feel like I really get to know these characters. And so I will binge read. But finding something that's going to recharge you, because I would really plan something now, because when you reopen, then you've got a lot of balls that you're going to be juggling between clients and your staff and getting back to the new normal. So take this opportunity to take care of yourself is going to be important, so you have the energy.
Yeah, and I just had this conversation earlier with Susan. Oh, actually, I think you were on too, Lori, when I said right now I'm doing no self-care because I feel like we're in this critical period where I'm working harder than ever. Like I just want to, honestly, I just want to slap the next person who says to me, this is such a nice pause. There is no pause in my life right now.
No pause.
I work from home, and now I'm working all the time from home. I honestly, I want to slap someone, which probably indicates that I need to take a break. But
self-care.
Exactly. But what I have noticed is that I am taking longer walks with my dog. And so here's the truth. Here's like the reality of my walks, because my husband goes with me because we work together from home. The first normally our walk's about 30 minutes. Now we're doing like hour-long walks. The first 30 minutes is me complaining about something. I'm like, this happened and that happened, and I'm so mad. And that is all just stress, because I'm not usually like that. And my husband, thank God, he just is like, he just listens to me. And then by the end of the walk, we are back to normal. We're back to like just casually talking and, talking and enjoying the walk and actually looking around and seeing what's going on in the world and that kind of thing. But I think has become my self-care now, is that walk. It's benefiting my dog greatly. I feel like I'm just going to have more daycare for him later, because I think I'm just building up his endurance. But that's what I'm doing. I've already scheduled, like, next on the 27th is when massage parlors open up here. And I plan on scheduling that as soon as they come open. And I've already booked going camping, hopefully next month, where I'll probably still be working, but I will not work as much because I'll be up in the mountains. And that's just a different environment for me. So, Lori, what are you doing for self-care?
Oh, the usual, which is not much. But on that note, how quickly I changed the subject. We can go back there, but I do want people are very stressed. And I posted something, well, Emily posted it the other day, about an experience I had at a grocery store. And the manager was saying, I thank them for being there and working. And it was this young girl, and then the manager was actually bagging the groceries. And I said, well, how has customer morale been? What have you seen? And she said, it's been awful. She said, people are mean. And the young girl who was working the register, she said, well, I just give it right back to them. And I train people on this and work with a lot of people her age and have to work through that. But what the manager said to me at that point in time, she said, that's why I'm up here working and bagging groceries, is because these young kids don't know how to handle these situations. And so one thing that I would say to anyone who is open right now or opening back up, thinking about it, have those conversations with the people who will be dealing with your customers, because it's not about that person who is behind your front desk or on the phone. But people are really stressed out. They're not doing any self-care, and they're really stressed out, and they're going to take it out on the first person who's in front of them or on the phone. So prepare your people for that, because it's hard, and they may give it back to them like this girl said she would, and then you've lost a client. So.
Yeah, and I think that's really important. So we had a couple of people. Suzanne said she just came out of retirement. So, and Lori Kaywood said the same thing. I mean, I think self-awareness is that's a skill you have to develop. But I know for myself, I think because I've been taught this, I can tell in myself when I'm starting to react in a way that's not normal. And right. I think Susan and I both recognize in each other. And I think we're being more patient with each other right now because both of us are living in a different world. And I think helping your staff to recognize that too. But definitely recognizing it in yourself and knowing, okay, I need to step away now and go right. walk the dog or whatever. I'm getting a hot tub on Monday, by the way. I had ordered prior to the COVID-19 situation. It's just now getting delivered. So I could have used it like 3 weeks ago, but hey, getting it Monday. So that'll be my self-care starting Monday.
So Lori, I am going to circle back because I do think you've got to find an accountability partner on some of the self-care stuff if it's not natural for you. Mm-hmm. And I know it's not, Lori, so I'm going to put you on the spot about what are you going to do for your own self-care if you haven't been doing it?
I need to go and walk my dog. Huck needs to be walked every day. And that's what I keep telling myself I'm going to commit to. Fortunately, there are other people who live in this house who also walk him, and we do have some acres around the house, but that doesn't. So I'm going to walk Huck.
All right.
I'm saying
awesome. It. Exactly. You've got witnesses.
Exactly. Everybody email Lori and ask her if she walked Huck today. And then we'll just pressure you into it.
Pictures.
So one last comment, and then I know we've already gone over an hour, so we're going to let you guys go. But Laura Starr just mentioned we actually did a blog post about separation anxiety and COVID-19. This goes back to what Lori was talking about earlier. Our animals are going to miss us when everyone gets back to work. And since we're blessed to be open, we suggest daycare to get the pups out of the house. And for all of us that are dog trainers, we've been saying this since the beginning. Dogs are going to not do well when they go from 24/7 attention to nothing again. And so I do think, as Lori mentioned before, getting those dogs in a routine, talking about your clients about the potential for separation anxiety after this all ends and why you don't want to necessarily be with your dog 24/7, I think is really important. So that's going to help the dogs as well. And hopefully you're giving a break to the family too. So we can all use that.
So BJ's doing self-care as wine yoga. So BJ, you got to send me more details on that because that sounds right up my alley. So
I love that wine yoga. I might even do yoga if there's wine involved.
One of our clients in Wichita, Kansas, did that as an event with her clients. So
that's a great idea.
Yeah, it was awesome.
I heard this from a couple people too. I can't even drag my dog out for a walk. He's over it. Some of those Facebook pictures that are like the dog going, "Do not take me for another walk."
Another walk. I have heard that.
That's funny. All right. We will let you guys go. We do hope that we see you at our virtual conference, which is next week, the 27th, 28th. Tickets are still available. I put the link in there. I will add a couple of other links.
Robin is really over. It's the 29th and 30th. So
what did I say?
What's 27th and 28th?
Oh my
29th and 30th.
Move it up. We're working.
I'm practicing on the 27th and 28th, apparently, but the actual conference will be the 29th and 30th. It's all on the website. But we are still taking tickets available for that. So sign up for that. And if you have questions, give us a call, email us, talk to Lori if you need help communicating with your clients or your staff. And just hang in there. I just keep saying every day is a day closer to getting open and being back to normal. So that's the thing that I'm just holding on to. And the other thing we hold on to is Ed, who is one of our members who constantly says he's looking for the rainbow in the storm and he's going to ride that rainbow to the end. And I just love that. So he's using this whole opportunity to completely reevaluate his business. But that saying has just stuck with Susan and me, that we just say, we're riding the rainbow to the storm. So that's a great way to look at all of this as well. It's an opportunity to really make the most of what is not the best situation. So thank you guys for being on. Do you guys have any last comments before we let everyone go?
Yep.
No, right. But doesn't make us stronger. So I love this industry. You guys are awesome.
All right, everybody, have a great rest of the day, and we will post some links in this as soon as I get offline.
All right.
Later.
Bye,
guys.